Hello everybody, Ellie here with WhoCulture. We're another week closer to the 60th anniversary. Who else is excited? I'm getting very excited. We do not have long wait. But that's actually not what I'm going to talk to you about today. What I'm actually going to talk to you about today is maybe not so great. I mean, it's great for certain people, not so great for others. But we've had a lot of messages on Twitter. We've had a lot of comments on our videos asking things such as, is Unleashed going to be available internationally? When can I watch Classic Who on Disney+? Where can I watch Tales of the Tardis outside of the UK? So I thought that we'd just have a little chat about that kind of global situation in terms of what is and isn't available outside of the UK, and perhaps shed some light, maybe give some answers to those people who I'm sure are very frustrated by this situation. When the Disney Plus deal was announced last year, and then there was a lot of talk of spin-offs happening, naturally there were many people assuming, and I mean I was one of them, that with this Disney Plus deal, all of those spin-offs would then also be available on Disney Plus as well. The whole intention of this Disney Plus deal is to expand the audience of Who to a much more global audience and make it accessible to a wider range of people throughout the world. But as we are now starting to discover as more things are being released, it's not actually the case in some instances. Whereas we initially thought that the Disney Plus deal meant that anything in the Whoniverse, although we didn't know that it would be called the Whoniverse at that point, but anything moving forward in relation to Doctor Who would be available on Disney Plus. I'll just add as well, obviously outside of the UK. We've known from the get-go that in terms of the UK, that everything would still be available on iPlayer, and outside of the UK, it would be Disney Plus. But when we had the announcement of Doctor Who Unleashed not too long ago, there was zero mention of Disney in any of the press releases or posts or anything regarding Unleashed. There was not a single mention of Disney Plus, which seems a little bit strange if they were intending to release it as well. But from what I've seen so far, from posts, there's a Doctor Who Unleashed /confidential page on Twitter. Now that's not an official BBC page, but they've been pretty reliable in their posts with regards to Confidential and Unleashed in the past, and they seem to give indication that it will only be on BBC Three and BBC iPlayer, unfortunately. In the same vein as that, we also had the release of Tales of the Tardis, which is only available on BBC iPlayer and not available outside of the UK. Now obviously this was promoted as the first exclusive entry, the first new exclusive entry into the brand new Whoniverse. This kicked off the launch of the Whoniverse. It was the first thing we saw with this brand new Marvel style ident, and so it was very, very exciting, and obviously there are a lot of fans outside of the UK who were very disappointed to find that they couldn't access it. But in this instance we were given a bit more of an explanation with regards to why it was not available outside of the UK. No Disney funding went into this project. It was only the BBC license fee, and therefore it was only available to the license fee payers. Now that does make sense. If Disney had no input and no financial input into that project, and it was only the BBC, then why did Disney get the rights to that? This project in particular was actually a very last minute thing. Russell T Davies basically said that he felt as though they hadn't done enough to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, and so he gathered together some writers and a team, and they quickly threw together 6 episodes of Tales of the Tardis as an additional thing to help celebrate the 60th. And I think that was back in August, so this was a very last minute thing, and it could be that this was all organised and determined after the Disney deal was agreed upon, in which case it's not included in that Disney deal and therefore cannot be put on Disney Plus. In terms of Unleashed, I'm wondering if it's going to be something similar, whereby it is a smaller budget, BBC only funded project, and therefore will only be available to those BBC license fee payers. I know that will be frustrating to a lot of fans, but in my head, thinking about what Confidential was like, it could be a very similar thing where it's just kind of a much smaller scale thing and there's no influence from Disney there. But I think the biggest issue here being, obviously we've noticed so many of these questions asking us, where can I watch Tales of the Tardis outside of the UK? Will this be available on Disney Plus? Will this be available on Disney Plus? I think the biggest issue here is the lack of confirmation either way. You know, if all these things had been announced, and it had been announced and stated, unfortunately, this will only be available to UK viewers, or anything along those lines, this will only be on iPlayer, this will not be available outside of the UK. Whilst fans would have been disappointed by that, I think they would then be disappointed and get over it. But the uncertainty is what's causing the issues here, because these things are announced and then everybody worldwide gets excited about it because we don't know either way. We don't know that it's only going to be available to a certain group of audience members. So everyone gets excited about it and builds up their hype. Then they discover once it's released that it's not actually available to them. And so I think the solution here needs to be a little bit more clarification and certainty when announcements are made as to where it will and won't be available, just to clear up all of this confusion. It shouldn't take scrolling through the deep depths of Russell T Davis's Instagram comment section to discover the reason or confirmation that a certain show is not going to be available to certain audiences. We just need some clear confirmation either way, and I think people would respect that more. In terms of other existing content within the new Whoniverse, I think they are slightly more understandable as to why they aren't available as of yet currently. The 2005 revival, the new Who, is currently streaming on HBO Max, and so until that contract runs out, it's highly unlikely that that's going to be available to stream elsewhere. Whether when that deal does run out, Disney Plus then go, actually we'd like the rights to that now because we also have the streaming rights to new Who. That's what I'm labelling it, new Who, but that could be very well what's going to happen in the future. In terms of classic Who, that is available on BritBox in select international territories. So again, I think until that deal ends, it'll be a case of this is where it streams and we can't change that until we have the deal expires and we can review that. So maybe the viewpoint of Disney at this point is look, we can't launch the entirety of the Whoniverse like the BBC have. But we can start with what we've got, which is new Who, Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who. And then as and when we can acquire the rest, we will do a big glitzy, glamorous launch of the Whoniverse on Disney Plus. And we can do what BBC iPlayer have done and go, look, we've got classic Who, we've got modern Who, or new Who, we've got new Who, we've got all the spin-offs. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's their long-term plan. I think in terms of 2005 New Who, that would be the priority in my mind as to what they want to acquire next. And then obviously moving forward, we know from previous releases and from last week's edition of SFX that spin-offs are happening. I would be massively shocked if the major spin-offs, such as, the Unit spin-off that's been rumoured, a River Song spin-off, or anything in the same likes of Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, anything that's like a major spin-off of that franchise, I would be shocked if they weren't coming on Disney Plus as well. The whole point of the Disney Plus deal is to expand the audience and have a more global rollout of the show. So while smaller things such as Tales of the Tardis, which are a little one-off thing to celebrate the 60th, might not be available worldwide, I think anything major moving forward in the Whoniverse will be available on Disney Plus alongside the new season 1 of Doctor Who, or whenever it's made. And like I said earlier, I think all in all, the biggest issue we're having at the moment is just a lack of confirmation either way. And I really do sympathise with those of you who are outside of the UK. It must be so frustrating. I was going to say I feel your pain, but I am fortunate that I do live in the UK, and so I'm not suffering in the same way that you are. But that doesn't mean that I don't completely and utterly sympathise with your frustration and your uncertainty. For example, Sean, the wonderful Sean Ferrick, is still uncertain if he's even going to be able to watch Doctor Who itself, the main show, because of the way that BBC iPlayer and Disney Plus works in the Republic of Ireland. Now, he has reached out to the various companies to try and get some confirmation of that. As of yet, I haven't got any information to pass on to you. We haven't heard either way with regards to that yet, but I'm sure that when we do have a response either way, we will let you know. But as of yet, we are still waiting to hear back with regards to that. But I think that's the issue, isn't it? We just need a bit more confirmation a little bit more forthcoming with the specifics of who can and can't watch certain things being released. And as I said earlier, I think whilst fans would be disappointed at not being able to, at least they'd know. Whereas at the moment, they don't know, and that's more frustrating. Now, what I will say though is, this is a good place to start watching Doctor Who. Now is a good time, there's so much hype, and you might be thinking, I haven't watched much of Doctor Who, but I want to take those first steps into the Whoniverse. I want to take my friends by the hand and drag them to make their first steps into the Whoniverse, but I just don't know where to start. So we've got you covered there, so check out our video, 10 best places to start watching Doctor Who, and then you'll be all ready and in the know to start watching from the 60th anniversary. In the meantime, I've been Ellie with WhoCulture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.